on behalf of the Development and Alumni Department. That's the department at the University of Cape Town that's responsible for fundraising for the university, and also the department that looks after you, our alumni. We really welcome you to a very, I suppose, bittersweet occasion. The farewell of our Vice-Chancellor, Dr. Max Price, who's been the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Cape Town for the past 10 years. Before I say anything further, I just want to sort of comment on why we, in this sort of odd setting, this sort of odd arrangement, that we originally meant to have it in one of our lecture theatres. And the response was so, we had such an incredible response that we actually had to keep on moving it to another venue. And in the end, we were just overwhelmed with so many of you telling us that whether we close the invitations or not, you are coming. We decided, well, we'll have it in an open space so that we could see all the gate crashes. And so that explains why we're having it here. But I think it's also a testimony to how well loved, I suppose it's a word we don't use very often, to how well loved the Vice-Chancellor has been and is, that there's been such an overwhelming response. Or maybe Max suggested people wanted to say goodbye to make sure that you are actually going. So I'm not sure what the actual reason is. I suppose we'll find out in the fullness of time. So this is a really, as I said, sort of bittersweet occasion because for the past 10 years, Max and the University of Cape Town have been so inextricably linked. And so it's very sad, obviously, for us to say goodbye to him. And of course, we know that we will miss him and miss his vision and miss his leadership. But we also know that that there's an impermanence to all things, and that change comes. And so, while of course we're sad about Max leaving, we're also obviously excited about the changes that are about to come, as I'm sure Max is. But this occasion is really about Max and the last 10 years. And we've had this sort of back and forth because we've been doing this roadshow now for a little while. I think the last time we did it was in London. And I think I made your speech and you made my speech. We weren't exactly sure. We never choreograph these things sort of properly. But from the department, from the Development Alumni Department, I really have to express a deep, deep appreciation for the role that Max has played in providing leadership. He's really led from the front. We always sort of refer to him as the fundraiser in chief, because that's what he actually is. And I think that over the 10 years, the contribution that he has made has been astounding. From the commitments to ensuring that we would have a policy for student financial support, where we are now proud to be able to have a needs-blind admissions policy, where we do not turn away students who we academically accept on financial grounds. We admit the students, and then we look for the money. If you're good enough to come to UCT, then UCT must be good enough to find the money for you. That's been our policy, and that's been the philosophy of Max. And as a consequence, we've really seen a dramatic shift in the in the demographic makeup of our students, to the incredible commitment that Max has also shown to ensure that we attract students from areas that historically the university, we were not attracting students. Khayelitsha is just one example, where 10 years ago, if the University of Cape Town would get 20 students from Khayelitsha, it would be considered an achievement. And just down the road at Herschel, in any given year, you would get 80 students. And from Khayelitsha, you're looking at 1,000 students, 2,000 students who write matric every year. And over the years, through a program that Max was very passionate and committed to and actually initiated largely, the 100 Up program, which many of you will know and many of you fund, we now have a situation where every year we have 100 to 150 students from Khayelitsha who successfully get into the University of Cape Town, and not only into the Faculty of Humanities, and I'm not knocking the Faculty of Humanities because that's where I come from, but across the university. In fact, we're probably going to have our first medical student through the 100 Up program graduate quite soon. So I think Max can take a lot of pride in that. Max's commitment to scholarship, centers that he really believed in, and made it a concerted effort to ensure that these centers would not only be centers of excellence, but would be centers of excellence that would be well resourced. And just last night, some of you will have been at another function. Not that University of Cape Town is all about functions, but last night we actually broke ground on a neurosciences institute building, which Max has also been centrally involved in. So he's at all our alumni functions. He puts it very high up on his agenda. He makes space in his very, very busy diary. And so we're going to miss that, you know, as much as we obviously look forward to the new leadership that's coming. We will miss that, knowing that the Vice-Chancellor's commitment to alumni and to fundraising for the university was unwavering, consistent, and totally dependable. So, Max, this is your moment. And as you can see, so many people have turned up to wish you well and to acknowledge your incredible leadership over the last 10 years. I just want to say that we are in the Baxter Theatre. That's pretty obvious, but there's a show starting, I think, at sort of 7:30. So we have to sort of finish quite. We have to finish before the show starts. So the Vice-Chancellor will actually have a real time restriction that he'll have to adhere to, so that the show can continue and undisturbed. But we don't want you necessarily to leave after Max speaks. We want you to stay, mingle, eat as much of the food, drink as much as the wine, but afterwards you're going to have to pay. And don't forget to actually continue to make your contributions. The annual appeal is coming up, huh? Remember? And so we really do rely on your support for the university, and thank you really from the bottom of our hearts for your continued loyalty, support, and funding. Thanks very much. Vice-Chancellor.
So unchoreographed, I'm going to have to delete all the paragraphs that have already been covered. Welcome and thank you so much to all of our alumni for coming this evening. The event, although it was moved because of the crowd, is actually very symbolic and appropriate for me because some of you may have been here at my inauguration, and the inauguration took place in this foyer of the Baxter Theatre, and so it's a lovely way of completing the circle. And my thanks to you for coming is also to you for the fantastic support as alumni that you have given. And Russell, just to pick up some of the strands that I think weren't completely tied up, that he mentioned, what fundraising is, of course, the alumni are critical to fundraising. Over the decade, you, the alumni office, Russell, led by Russell for the last 5 years, Jim McNamara before that, the people working behind the scenes, the researchers who write research grant proposals, the project leaders, have collectively raised over 3 billion rand over the decade. What that means is we've been raising 1 million rand a day, every day, for 10 years. And that is really some achievement. And it happens because of you, and because of your support, and because you're ambassadors for the university, and you send out the good message, and you persuade people, foundations, trustees. There are one of the real success stories of the DAD has been the bequest program, which when I came in, we had, I think, 30 people on our list as people who had written UCT into their wills. Today, that is over 300 people. So it's a tenfold increase, and that's long-term investment. That's what's going to keep the university going through tough times in the future. But fundraising is one thing. I think when I think back on the decade, many people say, if you had known what you know now, would you have taken the job? And indeed, that's because, of course, we are seized with the last 3 years, particularly 2015 and 2016, which were years of turmoil and protest, and critical years. I think we'll look back in a decade's time and we'll see this period as having been a watershed, not just for UCT, but for higher education across the country. And we will reflect back on the profound changes that these protests have achieved and have done, but also the trauma that was caused. And it has been traumatic, it has been very stressful. But it was only 2.5 years out of a 10-year period. And for the first 7 years, the so-called biblical 7 good years, I was on a high. I think that the job, I feel enormously privileged to have had the opportunity to lead this great university and to see it change, to help promote the change, to steer it through the storms and come out the other side. No doubt I have made mistakes, many mistakes, and could have made some better choices. And much of the achievement, all of it is not mine. It's part of a team. I want to say thanks to the senior leadership team that I've had around. Thanks to the support staff who are often hidden in the background, such as the people who organize events like this. But in reflecting on those years, as I say, the protest period is most uppermost in our minds, and we are, and there were significant achievements. And I think we're through the storm because the main national project there was cheaper or affordable education. And actually that has been significantly achieved. We do now have what amounts to free education or bursaries to cover students below the 350,000 income. It will expand to cover all students in that category. It's not enough. We still have to raise money for the people from 350 to 600,000 because it's still not affordable for them. But the money that you and others give to support bursaries will now be able to extend to students on postgraduate study who currently have no funding from government, and students in that missing middle group. But that is a profound change of this period. And the other is the challenge to the kind of institution that UCT is and that the historically white universities have been. Institutions which have not been inclusive or not felt inclusive. And I think we've made great progress. A long way to go, but we've started to address the symbols, the road statue, of course, par excellence, the artworks, the names of buildings, the names of spaces, the curricula and the emphasis in curricula, and the demography of the university. But because we tend to be, because our memories are dominated by the most recent periods, I want to take the 10 minutes or so that I have to reflect on the decade as a whole and on what for me are some of the highlights. And the first, which people are not so conscious of, is the growth. 10 years ago, we were a university of 24,000, and today we're a university of 29,000. We've grown by 20% in this decade. And that's significant. It's one of the ways in which we've contributed to improving access to education. All of that growth has been black students at UCT. Much of it has been postgraduate students, which is in line with our mission to become a more research-oriented university. And much of it has been students who previously could not access the university for financial reasons. And I won't repeat what Russell said about the needs-blind admission that we've implemented, and that has been enormously successful. Along with that numerical growth of students, we've had significant growth of infrastructure. We built the Obst Square residence, which is 880 beds, expanded our residence capacity by nearly 20%, and we've bought a number of residences, the Harold Cressy residence, for example, the Dalla Omar residence, and so we've expanded our physical infrastructure has grown. We built the new economics building on the middle campus, on the lower campus, middle campus. We built Masingeni, and we moved all the student administration into the Masingeni building, which has released lots of space around the campus for teaching. We built a new engineering building. We built the new Snape building, which is the new lecture, full of lecture theatres and learning spaces. We built the new lecture theatre at the south end of University Avenue, which is the largest and most snazzy lecture theatre we have. And that's just on this campus. There have been construction on the other campuses too. We're halfway to building a new conference centre at Breakwater Lodge. We're at the business school. As you heard, we've broken ground on the Neurosciences Institute at the medical school. So this has been a period of growth, of significant growth, not just in numbers, but in infrastructure. We upgraded the classrooms. We spent 100 million rand. And that's not just about making them more comfortable with air conditioners. That's been about improving throughput and educational success. And so let me move to that theme of, so one highlight is growth, one highlight is student access, and the third highlight for me is student success. Graduations in particular are the highlight for me of the year. I try to do as many of them myself in person because it is so wonderful to meet the families of students who are first-generation students. Their families come from rural northwest province, from Taung, and they've never been to Cape Town before. Sometimes they've never seen the ocean before. And they're in Cape Town, they're seeing the ocean, they come to UCT, they see this amazing set of buildings, and then they're in the graduation hall, which we now call Memorial Hall, no longer Jamison Hall. And in the graduation hall, they see their sons or daughters up on the stage, and you talk to them and you can see, often through a translator, you can see that this education that we're offering is changing the lives, not just of the individual, but of the family and of the village and of the community. And that's what makes this such a rewarding job, such a rewarding place to work. But that success at university has been harder to achieve because of the improved access. As more and more people have been admitted from weaker schools, rural schools, township schools, we've needed to invest more in the success, in improving success. And so we've had programs like the First Year Experience, which recognizes that the reasons for failure are not just how much maths you learned at school, but your ability to adjust socially into an environment which is unstructured, where if you don't go to lectures, no one looks after you, where you can be very lonely, where you don't know how to run a bank account and you need guidance first time you're dealing with significant amounts of money, and you have social issues, you have girlfriend and boyfriend issues, all of that, you have drug issues and alcohol issues, all of this is part of the first year experience, which we recognize now we can't just leave to people to sink or swim. We invest heavily. The classroom improvement project that I mentioned, 100 million rand, was very significantly about improving success, because all of those classrooms have what are called lecture capture facilities, which means the lecture is automatically recorded, and it's a sophisticated recording that is following the lecturer around. It's recording what's on the board, it's recording what's on the projector, and that night the student can revisit the lecture. And particularly for students for whom English is an additional language and who struggle maybe to take notes fast enough or to understand the accent of the lecturer, this is a game changer in the purpose and the success of lectures. Of course, it has to be admitted that the main beneficiaries are the people who can't get up for an 8 o'clock lecture in the morning, and so they don't have to get up anymore. They can actually watch the lecture on their laptop at lunchtime or in the library or wherever. But as the research shows internationally, lecture attendance does not really drop. By and large, people use it to supplement their work. So the teaching has been, and our success rates, our pass rates have improved over the decade. And although we still have a differential between the pass rates of disadvantaged students and advantaged students, that differential is converging. It's getting narrower, and we're doing the right thing. And then a fourth highlight is our global imprint, our global footprint or presence. And I think that one of the ways the university, many people's perception outside of the decade is that that UCT is much more of a global player than it ever was. This is through networks that we are part of or that we've started. It's through the partnerships that our scientists have with scientists all over the world. It's through the fact that we have 5,000 students on our campus who come from other countries and who are studying their degrees here. 20% of our staff come from other countries. A third of all of our PhDs are from other African countries, and when they go back to their home universities as graduates, those links that they formed here become the basis of research networks and research collaboration and future networks. So, and then internationally, we've continued to do well in the rankings. We are a partner of choice for universities around the world. Every week, we have a delegation from another university at UCT wanting to explore ways of partnering with us, and that has been fantastic for our research. And so that brings me to the fifth highlight, which is our research project. We distinguish ourselves through being a research university, and that means that we have more postgraduate students, as I've already mentioned, more doctoral students. We have the largest number of postdocs of any university in the country, and our research output in terms of publications has increased every single year. Even through the years of protest and turbulence, our research output has continued to increase. And not only that, but our citation rate, so the number of times that our research is quoted by other researchers, which is a sign of the impact that we have, that has continued to increase every year, as has our research grants. So we have a budget of about 5.5 billion rand turnover a year. That would put us as a serious player on the stock market if we were looking at turnover. And half of that money is research money generated from outside the university, from outside sources, and a significant amount of it, just up until last year, more than half was from overseas. Last year, interestingly, more than half was local. So those grants have increased significantly. As you heard, we have to stop before the play starts at 7:30. And there's so much more I would like to say about the highlights of the decade. I want to pick out a few projects which have been pet projects of mine. One is the Design School, the Hasse Plattner School for Design Thinking, funded by Hasse Plattner Foundation. He's just about to give us about another 40 million to build a building to house the school, which will be on the lower campus. And that is an approach to innovation, which we hope many, many students and non-students will be able to take courses in, and will change us into a more innovative and entrepreneurial society. Another innovation has been, you heard, the Neurosciences Institute. A third has been the Graduate School for Development and Public Policy and Practice. And that school, we have just, I hope I'm not giving away, I hope the press will report this kindly, we have just had permission from the Nelson Mandela Foundation to rename the school the Nelson Mandela School of Governance. And it is along the lines of the Kennedy School or the Woodrow Wilson School in that tradition. It is a school of government. It has been going for 5 years already, has delivered a number of MPhil classes as graduates. And the really exciting thing is that it is also going to get a new building. We hope it's going to be a building which we hope will be it will be just above the zoo on Table Mountain. It will be a sort of counterpoint to the Rhodes Memorial, and it will be also a center of memory for Nelson Mandela, and a venue which combined. Nelson Mandela did not want a mausoleum. He did not want the sort of colonnade and statues on horses. He wanted a building that would reflect his role as an African diplomat and a global diplomat. And so a school of governance named for him with that is the perfect venue. And we have half of the money, and we have to raise the other half to build that. So these are really exciting things. Let me wrap up with a few concluding points so that I don't miss out the thanks. I want to, there are too many people to thank, but, and I have already thanked the various teams that helped me, but I want to pay a special tribute to my wife, Deborah Posel, who has gone through a huge amount with me. She's, as many of you know, a professor at the university, and has her own career as an independent academic, of course, but that has been a particularly challenging role to be an independent academic when you're married to the Vice-Chancellor. And I want to say thanks not just for her independence, but for the support for being there with me and for shaping my thinking, helping me make decisions, influencing some of you will have received, well, many of you as alumni will receive letters that I've sent out trying to explain how I interpret the situation, and those are always crafted with her and with her support. They're not solo efforts. And so the second thing to say is that she's going to have an opportunity now she's going to take up a visiting professorship in London for a year before returning, and that means I'm going to be going with her for a gap year. I'm going to be the plus one to do the cooking and shopping, and I'm going to go to some galleries and have some fun while she works. But that, I hope also, I have a project too, which is to write a book about what it's like being a Vice-Chancellor this last decade. And I think it's going to be, because I think it's an important period in history, I think people in the future will want a number of different narratives. There are already narratives. Some of you have seen the play The Fall, which has become one of the narratives of the Rose Must Fall movement. There isn't, in my view, an adequate narrative from the side of the executives of the universities, and I hope to offer one of those. But also, together with Deborah, in recognition of what we've gained from the university and how important it's been in our lives, we've established a scholarship for postgraduate students, and I invite you, if you want to contribute to support that. A number of others have, a number of foundations have, and the alumni overseas have generated over R1 million towards this already, so it's a very exciting scholarship, and from both of us. And the last thing I want to say, you can... As the curtain rises on the play, the last thing I want to say is about the handover and the transition. I am so excited and pleased to be handing over to Professor Mamokgethi Phakeng. She's been at the university. She's been at the university for 2 years. She knows the university now. She knows the people. She's been in the portfolio of research and internationalization, and she's very committed to research excellence. I think the university in that respect is going to grow phenomenally. She's very charismatic. Some of you will have met her, but as alumni, I'm sure there will be many occasions when you'll have an opportunity to engage with her and listen to her. And I feel that because it will be a seamless transition. She'll take over on the 1st of July. And the university has every confidence that it is in fantastically good hands and is going to prosper and grow to new heights. And I hope that the support you've given me, and it's been fantastic support, not just money, the emails you've sent me individually to say, it must be tough, we're with you, or someone comes to me in a restaurant or in a shopping mall and says, I'm one of the alumni, I think you're doing a great job. That kind of support, you don't know how valuable and important it is to us, and we thank you for that, and I hope that you will continue to offer that sort of support to the new Vice-Chancellor and the new leadership team. Thank you all for coming. And please stay and eat.
Thank you very much. And before we conclude the formal proceedings, I've been told that this is a selfie board, whatever that means. So if people want to kind of take pictures or selfies, this is where it's supposed to happen. So that's the sort of last of the formalities. Have fun, and thanks again for coming, and don't forget to write the checks. I have to say that. It's my job. Okay.